Are we starting? Oh, no, I'm just joking. I knew we were starting. Come on now. What's up? This is the third episode we are shooting today. Get Down Podcast, where we hustle harder than everybody else. And we're able to do it because of Dragon Energy. The power is yours. And now let's just run it back. I want to do it more confidently.
You take your mask off?
Confident with guy masking.
Oh my God. I honestly didn't even know I had it on.
I think I matched that today, do I?
What?
Matching.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey. This is the third episode we're shooting today. Get Down Podcast. And we were able to do it because of Dragon Energy. The power is yours. And this is keeping me going, honestly, after the night I had. And it's also brought to you by 902 Lit. Support
Keeping the
them.
Maritimes looking fresh.
You know, homie that runs it, Jeff, solid dude. Support local. Help get somebody's kids music lessons instead of buying some asshole a Ferrari. 902 Lit. Buy that shit. Dragon Energy, keep yourself moving. The power is yours. Anyways, all the plugs been done. Now let's plug you.
Me?
Actually, that came out wrong. Fuck, we have fun here, don't we?
We try.
I do, at least. Who do we got in the building today?
Kevin Beal, owner of Black Buffalo Records.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
It's honestly, when we started doing the podcast, you were one of the first people I thought of because of just the way you bridge so many different people together. Like, that's something that you've been really good at since the incarnation of Black Buffalo as a record label.
Yeah, my partner Kumud and I like to try to consider ourselves as the Switzerland of the underground hip hop because there's a lot of battling egos and tripping fools, and even with the closest, brothers that you have and sisters, you're always going to fight, right?
Oh, yeah.
So over the past few years, Black Buffalo has become kind of neutral ground, so you got to check your egos at the door. We don't put up with any of your bullshit, and if you are beefing with somebody that is on the label or something, like I don't get down with that. You can fuck right off, right? So
Yeah.
you don't bring that shit into Black Buffalo. It's neutral. You deal with your beefs outside, and when you're on the label, it's all a family, right?
Yeah. Especially if your beef is some stupid little shit.
Yeah, but
It always is.
With careers going back 20 and 30 years, you're always going to come into times where you're on the outs, right? Everybody knows the trials and tribulations of like Joe Run and Buck 65, and how they fall out, but they're good dudes now, right? So you may have your times, and you may not get along at a certain point in your career, or everybody matures at a different rate, and that is not what the label is about. The label is about promoting the music and the art. I don't fucking care about your personal problems.
Yeah.
Right, to be honest.
And like, you've always been about the music.
Yeah,
like
the
you
music
love
comes first. It's music. That's
you love music.
Yeah.
And I feel like you really appreciate the opportunity to put out and share music that you like.
Yeah, that's a very good observation, Paolo, man. That's when I was a 14-year-old, Kevin Beal was all about just sharing music with his friends, and that's what 47-year-old Kevin Beal is doing now.
Yeah.
Right, but on a bigger scale, and I appreciate the opportunity that hip hop has given me. I've been a fan for probably when I was like 8 years old or something is when I first got my Fat Boy cassette, right? Ever since then, that hip hop has given me a lot of enjoyment. And then one day, in walks Joe Run into my store, and hip hop has given me an opportunity. It's like, all right, here you go. And ever since then, it's just been, I see the opportunity and recognize, all the hard work people have put into it, and for me to, kind of fuck around with that is, you can't. So you got to respect it. You got to do the best you can. You got to work as hard as these guys have done. Right? So it's a mutual respect, right?
Absolutely. It has to be like, you know, especially like in your position, right? Like if somebody's going to trust you to distribute and promote their work, right?
Exactly.
Like,
What I'm talking about was Joe Run coming into my store one day and saying, "Hey, do you want to put my record out?" Right? It's like, to have, you don't get those opportunities just to fall in your lap.
So did the transition into being a label, because Black Buffalo started with the record fairs, you were saying?
Yeah. Back in, well, even before the record fair, I don't really remember the chronological precisely, but late 2008, 2009, I started selling records out of my garage. Basically, I just being a hound of records and not necessarily buying records for listening to hip hop. Sorry, it was more of just buying records, to find different beats. Just more of a. I'm not a beat maker or anything like that, but a bedroom DJ maybe at the best. So trying to find these different breaks and records and stuff, it accumulate over time. And you get a lot of shit, to be quite honest. So you can't keep it all. You got to get rid of it. So with a couple of influences from a close buddies of mine, they're like, "Yeah, man, just start selling your shit out of your garage." I'm like, "Yeah, well, fuck it, why not?" And ever since then, didn't look back. The vinyl resurgent was just starting back then, right? So records were. I hate to say anybody says vinyls. Records are. Records are, we're becoming cool again, right? Like everybody was starting to get into it. The price of records were relatively cheap. You can find them for 50 cents to $1 kind of thing. So back then, I don't know, 15 years ago, it was easy to buy lots of records and you could pull out the 10 or 20 that you wanted and flip the rest kind of thing, right? So that's really where I started. Then having some success out of the garage, I met a few people and we opened up a cooperative store called Plan B on Gottingen Street, across from Alter Egos. And I ran records out of there for a couple of years. And then just kept on growing. I grew out of that space and got our own space on West Street. And after that, the place was getting too small. My partner and I, Kumud, we had another great opportunity that came into our lives, and we were able to buy the remaining record collection from the CBC archive. Right. So
there's probably some gems in there.
We had over 30,000 pieces of music.
Wow.
Like an 18-wheeler pulled up on my driveway, and we had 15 pallets of music.
I can just picture you being like so excited,
It's just a library of music of the Maritimes from like 1960 to the 90s. Just here it is, right? Before it was sold to me, though, a few of the local DJs, one in particular, Fester, was able to pick through it, right? So Fester was carved out a really good chunk of the good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Whenever you let producers have the first dibs.
The funny thing is, he knew where that collection went to. It went to Black Buffalo, and as soon as I was able to process it and get it on the shelves, one of my first customers was Fester, right? And that's when I got first introduced to Fester. And he was like, "Man, I used to work at CBC. I knew this collection, but." He came in and he said he missed a lot. Like there's just so much he was able to pick off the front, but he came in, he was a pretty good customer when we moved to West Street. So at that point, we were starting to kind of curate the collection to be more for DJs, more for beat makers. Right? And then we had a lot of guys come through the door. And I think that's when it kind of got on Joe Run's radar. He came in a few times. He brought in Sean One. He brought in a lot of guys. And then, like Scratch Bastard would stop by. Other guys, it just started to circulate. Oh, this is the place where you can find some gems, right? We eventually moved on to Cornwallis Street. That was our last spot before we shut her down. But we had some really good parties there, and that's where, introduced to Moves and See. We would have some parties for celebrating just record store day, or just wanting to have a drink. Yeah. So we'd have a party, right? So, that's when the community really started to kind of embrace Black Buffalo, when we were on Cornwallis Street, and that's Joe Run came in one day and said, "Hey, do you want to put out a record?" We did, and it's 5 years after that. We're now at number 35. We've released 35 records now, right? So it's
the transition into a label kind of fell into your lap.
absolutely, yeah. If it wasn't for Joe Run, there would be no label.
Like Joe Run came to you when he came to the shop, and he was like, "Do you want to drop this record?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Cool."
Yeah,
so you do that.
He came in a few times before that. We got a relationship, friendship, just.
But to what
buying records
level
and shit,
was it
but-
you that was like, "Oh, that was cool.
Well,
I want to pursue this."
I was
like,
a fan. I knew the community. Like I was, like I said, I was that, 16-year-old, maybe even 17-year-old at the time that was going to the Helltown Meltdown at the Cafe LA. Joe Run was the instrument to that, right? He was the conductor. He wasn't going by Joe Run at that time. It was like the Witch Doc or something, right? But he put everybody up on stage. Like that whole project and his whole mentality was, he would let anybody, all the MCs and DJs just get together, and he built that community. He built Halifax hip hop, right? And I was a part of that. I saw that. I knew that, right? So I would see Joe Run walking down the street, and I'd be like, yeah, hey Joe, I know that guy. I know what he did, but now he's coming into my store, and now he's giving me this opportunity. I didn't have to think twice about it. I just knew, right? That's.
But that was like for the first one. That was for the first project you dropped.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what was the circumstances that led you to proceed? Was it Joe Run wanted to do a follow-up?
Well, it sold out in 48 hours.
That'll do it, man.
Enough reason.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sold out in
Money
48.
talks, man. Like if you outside of, appreciating music and art, there's still a business to it all, right?
Of course.
And we can't operate at a loss all the time. So Joe Run is our thoroughbred. He is our moneymaker, right? He sells out like that.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Run
He's
is
internationally
known and respected.
Exactly. Right?
Like whenever he drops a new like mix he's working on or something, like you'll have like Jazzy Jeff and like Pete Rock being like, "Yo, that's crazy," and I'm just like, if Pete Rock commented on my shit, I think I would just shit myself. I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. Like,
yeah, he's built his career up to the point where his peers now are, Biz Markie, Jazzy Jeff, De La Soul. Those are the guys that are calling him on the phone every day and talk. Like those are his peers, right?
You know what's funny about hip hop and in general is like Joe Run really was a scene builder.
Absolutely.
He was one of the people that like, and people might contest what I'm about to say or whatever, fuck him. But he was a big part in a lot of people getting a shot or having a platform or a venue to perform.
And it comes around again through Black Buffalo, right? And that's what
Exactly.
I'm saying, right? And that's why I'm more focused on Halifax, East Coast, and Canadian hip hop, because that's, it's given back to the community, given back to where everything has come from. Right?
And the funny thing about somebody like Joe Run is like, I feel like it's easy to be kind of jaded in the sense that like, you did so much for the scene and you put on so many people like in your day, right? But if you ask like a real young artist, like somebody that's like coming up, like about Joe Run, or like if he never would approach them to do a song, they like would not see what a valuable opportunity, like, like whereas somebody like Pete Rock will be commenting like, "Yo, that's fire."
Yeah.
But like somebody that's of the younger generation here that just didn't take the opportunity to learn who somebody was, would dismiss somebody like Joe Run as just an old head.
But that's why I appreciate yourself, and because you've taken the time to know the pioneers of your own backyard.
Of course.
Right? You're not one of these guys that are just jumping in and trying to. Joe tells me stories about up and coming MCs approaching him for beats, and he just laughs them off because they want to be their name comes before Joe, and Joe's like, no, motherfucker,
No.
it's Joe Run featuring you. It's not.
Yeah, not
me."
vice versa.
Right?
Yeah.
So some guys, they don't understand that they got to pay their dues and respect. They just kind of jump up and try to.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan. Like, I love that there's all sorts of different styles of hip hop. I think it's what makes it one of the most beautiful art forms. Is like, there's gangster rap, there's conscious shit, there's just having fun. There's trap sounds, there's different aesthetics, right? And I can respect anybody's aesthetic, as long as there's thought put into it, and they respect where the culture came from. Right? Like, I don't, like, if your style of rap isn't my cup of tea, I'm not just gonna dismiss you, as long as you have an understanding of where the culture came from.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when I listen to, like, Big Daddy Kane and shit, right? And, like, what I'm gonna say is gonna be controversial, but I think it's fucking true, all right? Is so, like, over the years of the art evolving, like, lyricism got more complex and depth and multi-syllables and blah, 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 blah. So, people might be able to say, like, oh, I can rap better than Big Daddy Kane, right? But Big Daddy Kane created the precedent.
Yeah.
You can rap the way you can because you have somebody else's shoulders to stand on.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
Actually, Mo D created multi-syllables, but Kane and G took it to that apex.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, everything in rap is building off of what came before you, right? So like, even if I'm not gonna make a song that sounds like somebody, like, I will respect and know where it came from. Like, when I heard Lil Yachty be like, I don't give a fuck about Tupac, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, even if Tupac's not your cup of tea, like, we're talking about a pivotal, influential person that impacted the entire culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's like lots of different incarnations of that. Like, a lot of the aesthetic of hip hop these days comes from Bone Thugs.
And 3-6 Mafia.
And 3-6 Mafia. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you guys. I took a huge hiatus of hip hop probably around 97. From like 97 to almost 2015, hip hop was not my main source of music I would search for. Like it was probably the last thing I would listen to, and I would listen to it just because I was at a friend's house and that's what they were bumping. For me, it was everything from like stoner rock to bebop jazz from the 50s is where I would get my enjoyment of music. And it wasn't really until getting involved with Joe Run again and having that breath of fresh air of hip hop back in me. Like, I'm a fan of the the golden era of hip hop. The Big Daddy Kane, the Bismarck Keys, like that 88 to 92 kind of stuff is where that's where I grew up. That's where I was heavily influenced. That was my teenage years. So like that's where you form most of your musical preferences, right? By the time I was in my mid 20s. Went to university, exposed to a crazy amount of experimental drug taking. Hip hop was not in my lifestyle. It wasn't speaking to me, like all the misogyny, all the crazy shit that was going on in the late 90s. It was like, man, I don't want to be, I can't get down with calling people B words and N words. Like, it's just not, I want to just kind of have fun.
You were more
right?
about the peace, love, unity, and having fun, kind of.
But on that though, it was just the music itself was not good. It was a bunch of pop rap, right? It was getting too mainstream. It was being more accepted in culture, and it was also being exploited as well.
Watered down,
right?
and exploited.
Bullshit,
yeah.
Right? So like, I found more interest in other genres of music, and I think that helped myself just broaden my awareness of, how music is made, and also have a better appreciation for better hip hop, like good hip hop.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like not just listen to every fucking MC that comes out and jumping on every different trend and style in hip hop. Like
No doubt.
And when I heard a good thing, I know, oh fuck, that's a dope beat, that's a dope MC. Who's that? But I wouldn't be there listening to everything that came out that year. Like when I was in my younger years, I consume it all, right?
Well, as somebody that is deeply involved in the culture and like loves the culture, sometimes like listening to rap becomes kind of overwhelming for me.
Well, you're an echo
like
chamber,
there's so much,
right?
there's so much ego, and there's so much like, that sometimes it kind of wears you down. You know what I mean? There's so much like shit you got to work through, like as a rap fan, and as somebody that loves the culture. And I went through like my period where like my big things, like I really love like the oldies, like Motown, Stax Records, kind of shit. Yeah, like that's my shit.
That's what hip hop is built on. Hip hop is not built on just one genre.
Yeah.
Right?
And like
so
roots
you can't
reggae.
just be in one genre.
Yeah.
You're in an echo chamber. It's just everything is just the same. Like if you want to get some influence and be creative, you got to look to other ways, man. And that's what I appreciate with Joe Run and like Moves and all these other producers. They're not just focused in those ways, right? They're looking at they know what the blueprint of hip hop is, and they push those boundaries with the.
Well, through the art of sampling too, you have to be aware of like global music in general, because you have to piece through all those pieces together and kind of put a piece.
Some of my like biggest, like some of the things that have influenced me in my songwriting has not been listening to other rap.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, sometimes like the aesthetic of like listening to Aretha Franklin, you know what I mean? Like will put me in a vibe to like, when I do hear that hip hop beat, I have this like totally different like approach to it than just like rapping at it. You know
look at the Beastie Boys, they started as a punk band, right? And then as they got more successful, they brought punk and more live instrumentation back into their to music, right? But it's always good to have a wider vision or an open mind to music, right? Because there's influences everywhere.
Or even like Ice-T with like Body Count.
Yeah. He went the other way. He started off electro, went into more like mainstream gangster hip hop, and then he went into thrash metal.
Yeah.